All right, we're on. Okay, welcome to the Finance Committee of the Indian Wells Valley Water District. This is Tuesday, May 6th, and I'll call the meeting to order at 3 p.m. All right, first item is committee and public comments. No public online, no public here. Any committee comments yet? Nope. Fraud risk discussion.
We have nothing to report.
That's always good news. Okay, number four, GA imported water costs. Discuss the imported water costs potential impact to customers. I know we're keeping it here as a placeholder. Is it something is there anything new on it?
The one thing I'd say is new is that officially the Groundwater Authority's environmental assessment was kicked back to the beginning, and there's a potential opportunity to relook at that and look at ways to make it more cost affordable, or look at different alternative projects since they're back at the starting line.
Okay. So nobody looked at this thing on the GA side and got back with us any kind of questions, comments, or anything? The cost analysis that we did, nothing.
No.
It's where it stands, okay. All righty. Let's go to I'm just looking here, budget update. Well, what I'm going to request that we do is before we get into the 2026 budget update, that we do the accounts payable and get that out of the way. So I'm going to switch them around a little bit so we can clean that one up right away. But right now we're on first quarter 2025 investment report.
Yeah, so you have the table in front of you that shows where our cash is located,
Okay.
both unrestricted and restricted funds, and then what designations those are is in the table below. So we have just over 9 million in unrestricted funds and just over 5 million in restricted, for a total of 14,258,000.
Okay. And the 5 million to restricted, that's earmarked for, what was Springer or any other pipeline we're doing? Is that where it's earmarked?
Yeah, it's bond funds.
It's okay, bond funds, okay.
And then there's some assessment district and capital facility fees is the balance of that
Okay.
fund.
All right.
And question for the board: when was the last time the board had a serious discussion about what they want that target to be? When we were at our board member leadership workshop, there's a lengthy discussion by one of the presenters that talked about, it really is the board's sort of overarching view to say, what do we want our targets to be? And I don't know that we've just sat down and had that discussion since I've been here. I don't know if the board thinks where we're at is fine or where the targets are, but like the goal that we should be looking for should be set and directed by the board. I don't know when the last time the board had that discussion.
So
I believe
we
it
did
is
that about 2 years ago.
Yeah, we have,
By
actually we have a resolution. We did a list of what the goals were of these.
Right. The only one that changes is the capital reserve, and that
Yeah,
is based on, one reservoir, one booster station, and one well.
that's what we
Now
said
that-
is the maximum.
Right, and
Okay.
that cost changes, of course, every year with the change of everything.
So we do have them, and based on what George is saying, if you guys want to examine and bring it back to the board for
Yeah.
changing, we probably should, because it's a couple of years ago, I think, that we did it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't think there's really, I don't see a need to change because we just haven't even gotten to that ceiling yet.
Right.
When
you
we
know.
get there, then we
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
Well, you might want to say, well, we could bring this one down.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
I don't think, I don't see any urgent need to change it either.
No.
But on the other hand, our water usage has been going down significantly. So it wouldn't hurt at some future date, not necessarily soon, that we revisit what our real needs are.
Yeah, and this is just, you go to these conferences and you want to bring something valuable back. That was one of the things they talked about.
Yeah.
And I thought, I've never really heard that discussion. So I thought I'd ask. the
I think that
question.
was brought back from one of the conferences that I went to. I think I brought it back and said, we need to look at setting these in
Yeah.
stone. Yeah.
So yeah, it's important. There's several districts out there that, don't even have the 6-month reserve.
Yeah.
And that can get pretty sketchy. We're better than that.
Yeah.
We have seen decreases in our reserves, mostly due to the earthquake repairs and whatnot that
Right.
we've been dealing with. And it's always good to have a little bit more, but yeah, we're in good shape compared to a lot of other districts out there.
And I agree. It'd be nice to see some of these reserves start to build up again. I don't suspect we'll see an increase in those for a couple of years or so.
Couple years.
That's what I thought. We should start seeing them go back up again.
I think it was interesting at the conference, the guy, we were talking about these reserves, and I believe Jason and Ty both sort of chimed in like, yeah, we had this giant earthquake in 2019, and thank God we had reserves because we had to dip into them. And that was, it was a really good example for the whole community that was there at the conference. They all kind of went, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think back to, I believe this damage that's taken place, this piping now, I believe that was earthquake damage that's just manifesting itself now. But there was no way ever to know it because now we're on our own with that one. But who knows, maybe if we, I think George had a suggestion that maybe we use people at the state level to say there's something we can lobby for or get inside a budget or something like that. Maybe we can.
Definitely.
I think we could prove it. But based on what the kind of pipe is and how it's corroded, maybe not.
I don't know.
It's hard to say. But okay, hey, but we could try. Yeah, I know.
Have to
And
see
yeah.
proof.
Yeah, I mean, how else does it crack? Well, I guess there's 1,000 different ways it could crack. Yeah.
Yeah, like one of the things that I brought up 2 or 3 months ago, right after the audit, was that the audit showed us actually losing 1.1 million or about that last year. And so our reserves are obviously going down when we're spending money that we don't bring in. So we do need to be vigilant relative to what we're spending.
Yeah, I think that, and we'll get into that later. Yeah, because we'll get into the budget itself. Anything else to say on the first quarter 25 investment report, Ty?
No.
Okay. If there's no other comments on that, we'll go to the financial statements for April.
Okay, so through April, so we're 10 of the 12 months through the year. We have revenues of just under 14 million, which is 1.4 million better than we had budgeted due to increased usage consumption this year compared to last. And yeah, as far as expenditures, we're at 15.1 million, which is about 900,000 over. The largest part of that is the GA fee, increased usage, increased
Right.
pumping, increased replenishment fee. Our net's a negative 1.2, which is about $500,000 better than budget. As far as capital expenditures, just under 7.5 million, 6 million of that is funded by other than just our reserves or cash. Debt service principal of 1 million and total paid to date to the GA is just over 17 million.
Mm-hmm. And when I just choke every time I see that, And so again, what we're seeing here is that from our reserve money that's set aside for capital expenditures is the difference between that's 7.45 million and the 6.1 million.
Yes.
So that would be money that came out of our reserves to cover projects. Okay.
Well, out of cash.
Out of cash. I
So
should
that's, kind of where we use depreciation for our
say. Yeah.
buffer there. So yeah, it's out of rate revenue.
Okay. All right. All right.
And just to give you a little bit of a preview, but that negative number, I anticipate being pretty close to zero by the end of the year.
Okay.
You'll
Because
see
of
that in the
GA.
year-end estimates, just because of we're accruing. We have to do the accrual at the end of
Right.
the year, which
Oh,
makes
yeah,
up
that
a
one,
lot of
that's
that.
all, yeah.
We've brought in more revenue than we anticipated, and
Mhm.
I think we'll be close to budget on expenditures.
Okay. That's good news. Stan?
I guess I obviously, if we pump more water, we get more fees, but it would appear after looking at over the last few months that a lot of that increased pumping has come in at the, what I guess we're calling now Tier 1, less than 20 units. And what that does is actually, instead of creating an increase in revenue, when you start looking at the money that we pay out to the GSA or the GA, it really, in the end, could very easily be a loss. And so that's
I'm not-
something
Yeah.
that we need to keep our eye on. And in addition, we need to make sure that we incorporate into our next year's budget the difference between water that we pump in tier one and water that we pump in tier two, because it makes a good deal of difference of what the bottom line is.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that big of a I don't think it's all in tier one. Our expenditures always outpace or come before our revenue because we pump for the last month and we pay it based on last month. We don't receive that revenue till the next month.
Right.
So it's always a catch up until the end when we get that accrual that makes up that difference. There will be a little bit of a difference. It's never one for one because we did take into account in the rate study when there's water loss, because we don't think that just tier two users should cover water loss. That is a district-wide expense. So there'll always be a couple $100,000 difference between the expenditure and the revenue.
Yeah, I can see that because this is a picture at a pretty given time.
Yeah.
And so that means the revenues you're showing here could easily not include revenues that are out there for collection.
And remember, so the first part of the year, fiscal year, we have high pumping, high revenue, and then it gets lower. So now we're more
Yeah.
pumping, but that revenue hasn't
Right.
caught up yet.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And that's why it's towards the end of the year, it's hard to see that.
Yeah.
And you sort of wait until all the accruals are in and all that straightened out. And we don't see that final thing until late July. When do we see it?
Yeah, we have to get all the way through the last billing in July before we can accrue that back.
Recruit all that back.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'd like, will you clarify there's $600,000 difference between what we collect for the GSA fees and what we pay out in GSA fees. And are you telling me that because of a timing differential between when we charge the customers and when we pay out the GSA fees,
Correct.
there is a built-in delay that hurts us, basically, penalizes us temporarily. until
Right, yeah,
everything
cash flow
equals
wise, yeah, a little bit. There's about a month.
Because we pay on meter readings for the month, right? When
We pay
the
based
GSA.
on pumping meters.
Pumping meters. And
Right.
so it means we're paying out based on what we've brought through our system, but all that hasn't been paid for yet by the client.
Right, because we have to
Yeah.
pay within 2 weeks of the end
Right.
of the month, whereas we bill the next month,
That's right.
and so, and then we wait to collect.
Yeah, there's no way to get around that either. I don't care how you set your billing cycle up or anything. You're never going to be, I've collected all my money by the end of the month and I've spent all my money it's never going to happen.
Well, the way we used to do it was worse for us as a cash flow. So this is a better system. There's still that 1 month delay.
Yeah.
But before it was a little more onerous. It hurt us a lot more.
Okay, well, that will take care of some of that, but I guess I want to make sure that, Ron, you and George know that Ty and I have a running disagreement on whether or not everybody should be paying in for those water losses. If everybody were using in the order of 10 or 12 units per month, we would be under our allocation of 44, basically 44.
Right, I think that's,
Hundred.
yeah. Mhm.
So
We wouldn't be paying any.
again, it's because the people that pump higher than what we have allocated is the reason why we're having to dig into our own funds to pay. And I understand where Ty's coming from, but we disagree.
I wish it was cleaner. And you're right. If nobody used tier 2 water, we wouldn't be paying any GA fees.
I have a question. If everybody used 19,
Yeah.
which is right below, right? The end of tier 1
Yeah.
is 20. So everybody in the valley used
Stated
19,
tier 1.
but water losses through leaks and everything
Oh,
like that
yeah.
pushed us over our allocation. Who should pay for it?
That's a good question.
Jason?
I don't want to.
Jason is.
Well, again,
Yeah, and that didn't,
we're always going to have water losses, but let's say it's 500 acre feet. You subtract 500 acre feet from the 4,400 that we are authorized, so to speak, you still end up with 39. So if we stayed under the 39, we would not be paid any fees.
It goes to something George was saying too. What happens when you have a customer who has a leak and they get way into tier 2 that they're never there, but it's a leak and they got to pay this $2,000 or $3,000 to the GA, and the GA is not going to forgive it. It's sort of the same thing happens there. By rights, you would say, you go to GA and say, man, this was a water leak out of my control, is that I'm using water, but they're not going to allow it. Same type of thing. I mean, what do you do? Until that fee goes away, we're stuck here. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is 2 more years.
Well, we
Yeah.
could have during our last budget series, changed the 20 units, that is the tier 1 level, from 20 to 18, or changed the price from, what is it, 5 and a quarter, up to 6 or whatever. Now, we chose not to. I mean, we knew.
Well, yeah,
what we were doing.
you're asking us when we do that budget analysis to work in a factor that accounts for leaks.
Yeah.
But collect based on that from our clients.
Which is what we
You want to
did originally.
distribute the leak costs to our customers as we think it might be,
Mhm.
right? And
Well,
and
we-
I'm not sure if you could even do that.
Well, we
Yeah.
originally actually did do that. We looked at early on when we went to this system, we looked at what we could do, or what we needed to do in terms of identifying a cost and a unit, a tier 1 number. And what we originally identified was something that would cover the cost. Now it just happens it's no longer doing that. But because the original number was more like 450 rather than 5 and a quarter. So we raised it because of that.
Yeah,
So-
because I think what we were doing is we were charging the lower tiers for the replenishment fee. So when we did the new study, we said, by rights, your lower tier customers, because they're staying within the guidelines and within our allotted amount, shouldn't have to pay it. So those people who elect to go over that amount are the ones that pay it.
Yeah.
And I
So
think
we
that's
raised it,
fair.
And it's
Yeah.
just not working as well as it was planned, but, I mean, there's no point in belittling it now, because we're not going to have another rate study. But
God,
on
I
the
hope
other
not.
hand, Basically, we're eating,
If there is one, I'll
Yeah.
do it.
and,
I won't charge you.
and I would rather see that money go into some type of capital improvement rather than going to the GA.
Well, we have to be careful there. We always say that, hey, if we don't pay, if the DA doesn't take the money, we can put it into another pot and use it. But don't forget, the Prop 218 said that money collected goes to the GA and goes to water. Port
Actually, the Prop 218,
Yeah,
it was a rate that we receive, and then the expense is ours.
that's right.
So
Yeah, we gotta be
it's not a
careful.
pass-through anymore.
Yeah.
Even though it functions as a pass-through.
Okay. Did we beat that one to death yet? We okay? We move on? I'm going to go ahead and skip over number 7, go right to 8, accounts payable disbursement. So we can decide, approve
Idea.
payment, yeah.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah, I'm not sure why we're still having these, to tell you the truth.
The accounts payable register, it's a requirement by law.
by law.
Yeah, that's the only reason we do it.
Well, my understanding was something that Peter Brown originally wanted.
As far as I know, it's required by law. I can
Yeah.
probably find this government code.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the figures,
Oh, the figures? No, well, I can get rid of the chart.
Oh, you mean the charts and all these things?
charts.
Yeah, those, actually, I think Don started most of those. He loved his charts, didn't he?
Don and Peter.
That was Peter
And
Brown
Peter-
he wanted the
Yeah.
charts.
I mean, I glanced at them. They're good if you want a photo
I'm not
snapshot.
sure any of the board members currently
Even look at them.
look at them.
What do you guys think? Is it take?
Well, no, if Ty wants to put them in.
No, it's up to
no.
Ty. If he thinks it's generating
I-
additional work and time.
It's additional work. It depends on if it's useful for you. If it's not useful, then I'd rather not put the work into
Well,
it.
it's, all I can say is not real useful for me.
Okay.
And I don't disagree with Stan on it. The only time I maybe like to see this is right at the end of the year,
Sure.
just one time.
Okay.
Just so we can do comparisons. Maybe we'll talk to the board about that during the financial time and see if they can agree to that. If so, then you just generate this at the end of the year.
Okay.
Unless you guys want it. Okay, all right, let's do accounts payable here. See if I got any questions. Southern California Edison.
Sorry, where were you?
I'm on the accounts payable. I went to the, which is the last one,
What pages?
2, 3, 4, 5, last 5 pages of the packet.
Oh, you want to go back
Yeah, I want to take care of this
to the,
first.
oh, okay,
So we could approve the
okay,
payments and then go back to the budget stuff.
okay,
That way we can get this one out of
I
the,
got you.
get this one out of the way. All your prepaid accounts is, I mean, that goes without saying what that is.
Mm.
PERS, scalpers, everything else. All right.
Did our costs on California Edison go up when we lost the copper?
Yes.
Yeah.
But every month we're paying that, when we're not getting it fixed, is that?
Right, so we put up the security system to make sure that works before we throw money at the repairs, because we'd hate to throw money at the repairs and then they just come in and rip them out again.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
so if you'll see that in the budget, in the capital projects is the repair for the solar system for
Mhm.
next year.
Oh, that's all included in next year's
Yeah,
budget? Okay,
yeah.
good.
It's over $100,000, so.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot of money.
Didn't you say we're gonna file something with Sederma?
No.
See if we can get,
We'll file, we'll see what
We'll
happens.
see what our insurance company
Yeah.
does. That's all we can do. Yeah. Okay, let me see. Nothing there. Let me see this. Gosh, the last page is only 1 page, Ty. What's going on here?
Oh, the second run's always a little smaller.
Yeah.
Are we on page 2?
Yeah, I'm just glancing through all the accounts payable to see if any questions.
Yep, there's one Ron Kaczynski. Oh.
Do we know if we're caught up with Ramble yet? Or will we be, or ever be?
Um,
I know you're budgeting in
I
next year.
believe we're at the end of the current approved contracts.
Okay. And if I'm not mistaken, the last thing the board approved was to move ahead with the Papadopoulos one. And we don't see any of that. Are they going to bill us directly for Papadopoulos? Is that the plans?
Yep, we'll get them directly.
And we need to get everything directly. I agree with George. All this of passing it through the lawyers or whoever else it
We've already
goes.
talked to them.
Yeah, it comes directly from them. You know how sometimes the lawyer pays
Oh,
consultant fees like to Tim or somebody, then it comes, and we don't know where it's going. So,
right.
so I think George
Yeah.
and Ty have gotten together and said, we want to build,
We got to trace
directly build.
all the numbers.
I can't
Are
dis,
those invoices
I
starting
can't disagree.
Yes.
from Papadopoulos?
We've only received one. It was minimal, like $1,500, so I should
Oh,
be
yeah.
receiving the second one
Obviously,
soon.
it's starting to work, which
Yeah.
is what we want.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, that was one of the ones we said, we got to have this.
Mhm. Okay.
I noticed on page 2, there's another charge for Southern California Edison. In addition to the 53,000 on page 1, there's 41,000 on page 2.
Yeah, those invoices trickle in all the time because we have several different meters and locations, and they're not all on the same time schedule, so we'll get some
Yeah.
on another
That's why you
week
call them
and-
prepaid
Because we pay them before the actual pay,
month.
the
Yeah,
pay run, yeah.
right.
But per month, is it fair to say that we're paying around $90,000?
Mhm.
Even if-
In the
even
the
if there's
summertime.
Offset, I mean,
Yeah.
they're probably similar.
Yep.
It's a lot of money.
It is.
The biggest bill is always the GA. Let's see. I mean, I don't see anything. I see Onstat's on here on the second page is, you know,
Yeah, that's patching, I think, for the
Onstat's on
Brady.
second page.
the second page, it's for patching and such.
They've started
break.
doing patching.
It's within our contract, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, they've got 3 more invoices since that one that we're gonna be,
okay.
they're out there working, they're gonna be doing more tomorrow. So they're getting it done.
We usually stay within the agreed, when we do a contract, because we do it for a year, and they're usually pretty good about that.
And we can extend that longer as long as they don't, raise their rates and the board approves. So they
Okay.
can keep working for up to like 3 years.
All right. Yipes. I don't see anything that I have any other questions on unless you do, Stan.
So on the total on page 3 is 327.
Yeah, on the first set, on the first week was 327. And the second week was
That's just the total, yeah.
345. Oh, because Groundwater Authority took a chunk of that the second week, didn't they? Is the amount of water we pump that's reported to the Groundwater Authority for payment, is it multiple meters, 1 meter? I mean, I assume it's multiple meters,
It's the same kind of report I sent you yesterday.
right?
But we also have to report to them, not just what goes.
So
into the
that report that
distribution
shows the
system.
pumping from each of the
Yes.
location wells, okay,
Yes.
that's what I thought, right?
We report all the pumping.
Yeah, are you on
Right.
page 4?
Yeah,
It's pretty standard, it appears.
yeah,
54,000.
345. Pretty much, I don't see any problem with it. I'll recommend to the board that we pay the bills. You recommend?
You're already at the end?
Oh, yeah. I
Which
was,
one we're
I was looking at it earlier while
Like a
you were
35.
while you were talking, I was looking at, I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm counting on you to keep me up with
Yeah,
where you are.
I bet you saw the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater
I
Authority.
just came to the ground.
That's what I figured. Whew, yeah. Yeah, that's it. Ramble. All right,
Well, Rambo on here, if that's the only cost, that's not real high, but that's not including Papadopoulos. He comes in on a separate invoice.
eventually, yes.
So I think I'd be happy if it were only. And Worth is still charging more than Everett. Okay, I guess
What I'd look for is there anything out of line with what we know that's going on with the contracts? Yeah. I don't see,
guess I don't see anything I would,
yeah.
you recommend that we,
Hey, well, we pay the bills.
Okay, I'll second
Yes,
that.
pay the bills. Okay.
So,
All right, we'll recommend to the board to
yeah.
pay.
To pay the bills we've already paid.
Pay the bills, yes, yeah.
Nobody puts a tariff on it in the meantime.
Okay. All right. No other comments on that. We'll move back to number 7, the fiscal year 2026 budget updates.
So if you're on the first page, go ahead and turn that over to the second page.
Okay.
Which is the first page with some notes off to the side.
So you're talking about after the graphs
Yeah.
and go to the second page?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Gotcha. All right.
So here's kind of the big world view of this. We've
I'm
got,
sorry. So the second page is actually overview, page 1 of 1.
it also says 1 of 1.
Yeah, because 1 of 3 looks like the same thing as 1 and 1, except 1 of
Yeah.
1 has notes.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Which I like.
Is this the 24, 25 cash flow projections? Is that the
No.
one?
25, 26.
The one
okay,
before.
on. Page 1, overview, page 1 of 1, yeah.
Okay.
So we've got 3 columns here. The first one, of course, is the 24-25 budget, which is this current year's budget. We have the year-end estimate. This is taking in the actuals and then projecting out to the end of the year. And then we have the 25-26 proposed budget.
Okay.
So you can see that, let's see, how do we want to go through this?
Should point out under is it capital contributions, the 24, 25, the 3 million?
Yes.
That's an anomaly there. It's the fourth number down in the middle one under 24, 25 year end. That 3 million you said was,
That's the grant we got from Shannon Groves for the Northwest Pipeline project. So we'll recognize that at the end of the year when it's earned, when the project's done. So we've received the money, but we can't recognize it as revenue until we've earned it.
Okay.
So
Okay, I think that's a finance thing. I'll get my, I can wrap
that's
my
a
head around it.
finance thing.
We received the money, but we can't recognize until we earned it.
Yes,
And what does earning mean?
the project's done.
Project's done, okay. Okay, gotcha.
So if you take out that 3 million from that 21 million, you've got the 18,039,000, which gives you a better comparison to how we did compared to budget and looking at next year.
I'm sorry,
I think what he's saying is,
I'm a little slower than everybody else.
where it has revenues, the fourth line item down shows total contributions. 3 million of that is the state grant. And he's saying if you take that out of the total revenues, you're, instead of 21 million plus change, you're more like 18 million plus change.
And it just gives you a more apples to apples comparison.
And apples, yes. Because,
Right.
yeah,
Well, yeah, and that's why, quite frankly, I understand that cash flow format better than I do this particular format, where we mix the two different kinds of funding, but I'll figure all that out. What I'm curious about is, did we increase the GSA fees
let's see.
based upon increased pumping, or
Yes,
how did we handle that? Because clearly we were off by a bunch.
When?
Pardon?
When were we off on the GA fees?
Oh,
I'm confused, when?
no, low. I mean, we estimated, if you go back to.
Oh, yeah, you're going back to
Yeah.
what we're currently doing.
Right.
Yeah.
so I projected it out for the year end
Right,
estimates based on usage both this year, well, looking at the last 12 months of
Right.
usage, applied that. So the tier 2 usage for the last 12 months, I can project out for the rest of this year. And you see there's only a delta of about $60,000.
yeah. You have to be a Svengali for that stuff. I know what you're saying.
Sorry,
That you have some actual figures that have
about
occurred.
$100,000.
And then
Yeah.
you got to estimate what's going to happen the next couple, 3
Right.
months. And then you massage all that to what's going to happen next year.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the 3,112,000 is your projected estimate of what we're going to get at the end of this year.
Now that was for the budget. For this year, I project out we'll get just under 3.5 million, that 3,496,000 in the
Right.
second column.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I got you. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the fees down at the bottom, 3,600,000. So I think we'll be pretty close.
Well, it looks like, I mean, your projection for how we're going to finish up 24, 25 looks pretty good.
Yeah.
But like, see what you're saying, this bottom line total you're seeing for positive 2.9 million, it includes that 3 million from the state.
Right.
So like Stan says, theoretically then, 2.9, we're $100,000 roughly above budget on the expense versus revenue, right? If you were to take the 3 million out
Right,
of that.
would be a shortfall of about 100,000.
About 100,000, shortfall about 100,000, okay.
Yep.
And,
So the water sales revenue, I take all the usage. Part of it's pretty easy because everyone gets charged the same tier 1 rate, if you will, for all water usage. And then I just have to look at tier 2 to pull the
Right.
VA number out. So I took all the water usage for the last 12 months. For next year's budget, I'm using 95% of that
I see that,
consumption.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Um,
That's pretty conservative,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, this year, we've seen
I do.
about a 10% increase overall for the
Right.
whole year. Though if I look at April versus the previous April, we actually decreased usage a little bit.
Right.
So I think 5% is a good compromise. I think we'll come in above
I
that.
did notice that April was down compared to the previous year, yeah.
So I think we'll come in above that, but I want to give us that cushion, you know, be
Right.
conservative. And then, of course, taking into account the rate increase that would go into place January 1st of 10%.
Right, okay.
12%, wasn't it?
12% was this year, 10%'s next year.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But you included
Yes.
a 12% increase for last year.
Right, for March 1st. Yep.
Or I guess if you use actuals, you don't do that.
I did to finish out the year. The 12% is included. Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
at the 12%. Okay, I got it.
okay,
Because at this point in time, we're looking at it, well, it's a 12% last year or this year and 10% next year, so 22% total over the 2 years.
Yeah, close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
except that we only get half of it
Right.
because of the way it.
Yep.
okay.
Okay.
So now the expenditures, kind of the same thing, projected out for the rest of the year. Next year, we put in the MOU costs that we anticipate being there, like the cost of living adjustment, which I think I put at 4%. That's probably going to be high, so it won't be that.
Which one's that, Ty?
The COLA is just incorporated in all of those expense
Okay,
lines.
that's what you're saying, okay.
We factored in merit increases for everyone. We factor in any kind of like cash out of vacation. Anyways, that's all incorporated in there. We went through and we made adjustments based on what we think chemical costs or fuel costs and all that'll do. Yeah, well, whatever changes in health insurance,
I'm just looking at personal and property liability tax insurance increases, my
Yeah.
gosh.
that's the
Ugh.
big one.
Yeah,
Our insurance went up about 125%, which, 125,000, which is 25%. And I think a lot of that unfortunately doesn't have to do with us. It has to do with the wildfires.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course.
And that doesn't really affect us
Affect
here.
us, but we gotta pay it.
We're gonna be paying it.
Yeah,
We also saw, PERS, they do their strategy of what they anticipate
right. And we have to fund it if they're,
returns to be, and they don't, sometimes they just don't quite make it.
yeah, if they under,
They underperform.
perform, that what they underperform by has to be paid.
Yes.
And that's, okay.
Yep.
But hey, we basically plan that and pay it.
Yep.
I don't want to get into a situation where the city was a while back where they didn't pay that and they had to go out of bond, remember, to catch
Yeah.
up on PERS.
So
Yeah.
there are some programs out there. We don't have the funding or anything to do it this year. I'm going to
Right.
look at it for next year, which is kind of, it's similar to what we do with our retiree health. And we put some money into a trust and it earns money. I mean, we've been earning, I think overall 6%
Really?
in our
Yeah.
retiree health. If you get that funded enough, then theoretically the returns pay for your unfunded liability.
Unfunded liability.
Well, I'm trying to get the
Trying to
OPEB to
work
that
that.
level,
Yeah.
the retirement, and then I think I want to look at that for the pensions as well.
That's
'cause-
good thinking. Yeah, big time. Yeah, great.
So
Thanks,
we'll look
Todd.
at that next year. We just
Yeah.
don't have any room because,
Okay,
as you know, these rates, we didn't do a 50% increase the first year,
right.
ramping it up a little bit, and it takes a
Yep.
little bit of time to catch up.
Okay,
We did increase adjudication costs,
right.
450,000. And a lot of that is just for support for the trials, Papadopoulos and Ramble and
Yeah,
whatnot
well, that's going to happen, yeah.
to do that,
But at
so.
least you got some numbers, as long as they don't throw some more at you.
Right.
That's what I don't, that's what I want to avoid.
Yeah. We're waiting for the attorneys to confirm these numbers. So these numbers are really good. I think there's going to be a couple little adjustments
Okay,
before the 28th.
all right.
But I think we're pretty close to where we need to be.
The adjudication numbers, as we were on that, does that include both attorneys as well as our consultants?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, the attorneys are, this year came in, well, the attorneys and all the little court fees that you
Right.
have
Yeah,
was coming in around 750, 800,000.
right.
So we kind of hedged with 900,000 for that, and then looking at what Ramble proposed and Papadopoulos for support for the adjudication,
Right.
added that in there. We may have a little bit of a cushion. I just don't know what kind of costs the court, when
Okay,
they're actually at trial, how much that's going to affect.
So that legal fee includes anything to do with the adjudication?
Yeah.
Okay, consultants, everything, yeah.
I've been watching what's
Yeah.
been going on in the court the last couple of weeks. And my feeling is when we start actually going into depositions for phase two, is it my understanding that we are going to lead the phase two program? George, is that?
I think it's Cerro Valley Minerals leading because they're the ones that brought it, they're the ones that proposed it to the courts they asked for the phase two. Officially, Cerro Valley Minerals did.
And I guess what I'm seeing is, well, quite frankly, it looks like a lot of waste. I don't know how much time you spent looking at it, but they're going over a lot of simple-minded stuff.
A lot of lawyer stuff looks like a lot of,
Over and over again. But
yeah,
But when it gets to things like coming up with
Sorry,
questions
Jim.
for the depositions,
yeah.
for the other guy's model as opposed to our model,
Yeah, I would,
I don't see any money that we talked about in the discussion paying someone who is an expert to give, because the lawyers aren't going to be able to ask questions. I mean, they're just totally out of the picture as far as I'm
Don't forget,
concerned.
phase two doesn't start till June next year. So there'll only be a smidgen of
Our
2026 in here, yeah.
depositions are going to start
Yeah.
this year.
yeah,
Yeah.
we should probably stay on budget. And I'm sure Jim doesn't want us
I mean,
chatting too much about the lawsuit.
Or you can bring it up on the 28th when Jim's here and grill him all you want.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well, as far as I've been able to see, the only thing we've paid for or budgeted for is paying our people to support our model and defend our model. But it turns out that the other half of the adjudication is trying to depose the other team's model expert. And I don't see that we budgeted any money.
Like I said, we talked to the attorneys. I've told them, hey, we're putting in 900,000. They said that should be enough, but they're coming back.
ask Jim at the next,
Yeah, so we've-
closed session, yeah.
yeah, we've had discussions with our legal team and we feel we're comfortable with the,
Well, this last week has kind of opened up my eyes to
yeah.
how, quite frankly, how much waste there is in this whole deposition court thing where they go over and over and over again. Very
That's what
simple-minded
lawyers do.
stuff. You
That's
know,
how,
And in fact, I think my feeling is that we've probably done a disservice in confusing the judge, quite frankly, more than clearing anything up. I don't know how many people have been watching it, but, the judge every once in a while has to say, whoa, hold it. What do you really mean? And what's going on? Can we clarify this? And I don't think so yeah, if we could bring that up in a closed session, because even though
yeah.
I would love that the legal stuff didn't cost more than 1.5 million. My feeling is after watching what's been going on, there are like, I think counted a minimum of 12 lawyers in that room. And that's not counting Worth.
unbelievable. Okay, well, let's move on from that because that's a number you're getting from Worth. And they're gonna get, if it has to be massaged, you'll know before we officially look at the final number. But you expect it's pretty close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I hope they're right. I mean, I hope they've actually looked at that, but I guess no one was talking about the other side, doing the research.
We don't know that, but that's, when we ask them for a number, they
Yeah,
know,
well,
they know,
but-
they
but-
know what deposition's
Yeah,
gonna be
and
done.
they
They
gave
know
us a
what needs to be
number,
done.
But if we don't, I mean, that's what happened before as well. And then they came up with, oh, but we forgot. you know, and that's.
We'll deal,
but I-
we'll deal with that. I think that they're working with the information they have now, and all we can do is push the legal team and everything they have to get the most accurate number they can. That's all we could do. Yeah. Anything other, Ty, that you need to, I see the GSA fees,
Yeah.
yeah. Going down,
Mm,
alternate water.
uh, I beg your pardon, but I would like to go back to the capital contributions. And, why, I mean, a lot of the money that we're getting for the consolidations, we're spending this year, and I'm assuming that's in the line of capital contributions. We've added that.
Most of it will be spent next year for consolidations.
Okay, well, in that case, why,
Are the capital, are the consolidations reimbursable? Instead of like, we don't get the money and put it in our bank,
No,
They're reimbursement based.
they're reimbursement based, Stan, so we just do the work and then we charge the,
right,
And so I don't have those on here because I don't have costs for the projects, but they're reimbursed, so it's a net zero, so I don't have them in here.
So basically, we're billing them for the actual costs that it costs us to do it.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
yeah, well, I understand that, but the 144,000,
That's,
that's more like the 154,000, and so you're saying we don't know what the number is yet, that
Yeah,
we're going
those
to
are-
be reimbursed so that we don't.
those aren't consolidation dollar figures. Ty, explain what those numbers
well,
are.
those are when someone comes in and does a water meter set application. You know, we get $5,086 for capital contributions.
Yeah, no, I understand. where
there's
the
dedications,
144
yeah.
comes from.
So that's why I didn't change it,
But-
because I don't know what the final or the expenditure number is, therefore I don't know what the revenue number is, but I know they're gonna be the same,
Yeah.
so it's gonna net zero.
Yes. Well, we're going to spend every dollar we get, or we're actually going to be reimbursed
Yes.
for every dollar we spend.
Yes.
That's the thing, we're reimbursed for every dollar we spend.
Okay, and so we think that's a zero-sum game,
Mhm.
and we don't need to worry about that. And I guess I'm still trying to get, I'll muddle through that.
Yeah, I mean, if I had the numbers, I'd put them in there, but
Because one of the reasons why, let's use the transmission and distribution as an example, because it seems to me that's where we took a lot of the labor that we used on money that we saved money in the transmission distribution area because those people, the in-house labor was working on those consolidation projects. So we didn't have to fund everybody out of the unrestricted budget.
And
It came out
yeah.
of the unrestricted funds coming from the,
and we did the same for this year. We have the construction crew. We moved about 200,000 from operations into that. We just don't know how many capital projects they're going to be able to do. I think was,
did we add a new line item for that group?
yes, you'll see it in the detail when we're done. Yeah.
Okay, but there's nothing,
No, they're included in the transmission and distribution,
okay,
except for what we took out as a negative.
but it looks like we got an increase in $3.2 million in 24-25, but the reduction in transmission and distribution is 300. It seems to me
So,
that
so
if
there's
we're,
some labor that came out of there. A lot of it is we budget for street repairs when we have to go in and fix laterals, but we actually did not use all of that budget for the year end. So that's, I think you
we
need a,
contracted out some of that money.
no, it's, we just didn't have, we didn't require all those funds, based on the work we're doing. So it goes back to the general fund, if you will, because we didn't have to spend it.
Well, but if it was a capital contribution and we didn't use it, it should go back to whoever contributed.
No, it wasn't a capital contribution. This is transmission and distribution. This is operations. It has nothing to
Expense.
do with capital contribution.
Which line are you on?
I thought you were talking about the transmission and distribution.
Well, yeah, I was.
Yeah, that's not that doesn't,
Right, no, I understand that, but if you go back up to the capital contributions in the income, that money, we spend it, and we're reimbursed for anything that we have as a cost, but only as a one-for-one.
so that there's capital projects associated with the
Yeah.
consolidations. That when we spend them, they are reimbursed and that number would show up in the capital contributions revenue item.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what that is yet, I didn't budget for it.
Yeah, I
So-
understand that. But I guess the amount of money that we spend in under expenses, I would expect to go down based upon the amount of funding that we didn't spend. Because if we get money from the state for doing the consolidations, and if it comes as a result of reducing in-house labor, then our in-house labor should come down an equal amount. Now, obviously, some of that is for materials.
So what I'd propose is when I get this all worked out, I'll send out the detailed listing to everyone, and then you can take a look at it, and we can go into
Okay.
more detail
Good
on the
idea.
28th.
We're not making any progress, and I'm not asking real good questions.
That's okay, you just saw this, I understand.
Yeah,
So we'll get those details out, and you can look through it a little.
Yeah, and the only thing that comes to mind is capital expenses aren't on here.
No, they're not.
They're not. They don't, the capital expenses don't show up on here. Yeah, they're on the other pages coming up, your capital expenses. Okay,
So what you'll see, the overall I want you to see from this sheet, though,
yeah,
is that bottom number, that negative 792,000.
right,
So we're still not covering our depreciation, which means we're reducing what we can do for capital outlay.
right. Okay.
It's better than the previous year, and as I said, we didn't do a 50% rate increase right off the bat, so we're riding the ship, and it takes a couple years to get to where we will actually be a zero.
yeah.
Okay,
What we do is we have to reduce the capital so we're not
right.
depleting our reserves.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, no, and quite frankly, I understand the next sheet better than I understand this sheet.
so it's gonna
Because
take
in my mind,
yeah.
it's,
I figure at least 2 years before we sort of start getting the ship beginning to go right.
Yeah, I think we'll be there in a couple of years. Yeah.
That's good to
yeah,
know.
okay,
Yeah,
great.
okay, all right.
So the next sheet, why don't you skip the 25, 26 and you look first at the 24, 25?
Okay, that's all right, the second one there?
Yeah,
Okay.
where we have the beginning cash, about 16.3 million. We had revenues, 21 million.
Right,
Total expenditures, this includes capital, but not depreciation, because, is 24 million, and that's because we drew down on the bond funds and we had the $3 million grant.
right,
So our cash flow is a negative 3 million, so that's what we had in the bank, 3 million came out, which is what you'd expect when you're using
right,
those funds. You see ending cash of 13.3 million,
right,
unrestricted 2.6 million, with all the reserves up above. We do meet the debt service coverage ratio. We're at 1.51. And we do meet our fund reserve target, but not our capital reserve target.
Right.
On the getting cash, could you break that out for me in terms of restricted and unrestricted?
I probably can. Not right this second, but I can.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it's got to add up to,
Yeah.
so if you could, and matter of fact, I'm going to have the same comment in a couple of other places, because my mind is more concerned about the unrestricted cash
Mhm.
and what it is in terms of our reserve, to make sure that we're not overspending our reserve. But if you could break that 13.3 out, I would appreciate it.
So when we end 2025, we still have 3.95 of bond funds. That's your restricted cash there for use in the following year. Then you go back to the page before, so we have that 13.3 million start, 19 million in revenues, 22 million in expenses. That includes 4.4 million in capital projects. 3.95 or so about of that is your, I think 3.5 is your bond funds. Saving 50,000 because I don't think I accounted for.
Okay,
Anyways,
I have the same
anyways.
question on the
Yeah, I'll break that
capital
up.
improvement program. Could you break out specifically, I mean, not off to the side in a comment or parentheses or something?
When you see the next sheet, that'll be there for you. On
There's a
the,
spreadsheet that shows all those projects.
we'll get to that point.
Okay, well,
But-
if show me where on those spreadsheets.
Yep,
When we add it, we get the 43, I can do that.
Okay.
For myself.
For my own understanding, when you say beginning cash, it's all the cash in the bank.
Yep.
Restricted, unrestricted is all money there, including any revenues that are presently there.
Yep.
So we're going from, so this fiscal year, we went from 16.3 to 13.3, right? Because
Yep.
you had a net cash flow of -3. And then we're going to go from roughly 13 down to roughly 10 million.
Yep.
Is what our prediction is next year. And again, that's because we're just beginning to, like, as you say, right the ship.
that, we're spending the bond proceeds.
Spending, I'm sorry, spending the bond proceeds.
We're
Okay.
spending the bond proceeds.
Okay.
So your ending cash is 10 million. You have unrestricted of 3.2 million. Debt service coverage 1.39. We still meet our fund reserve target, our 6 months O&M, and we still do not meet our capital.
Oh, yeah, I see. Under
Replacement target.
bond project funds, it goes to 0 from the 3.9 million. It's being spent. Gotcha. Okay.
So now if you go forward 2 pages,
Oh, I'm sorry, one, on the net cash flow. Could you either break out or show me where I can break out the net cash flow between, the, unrestricted and the restricted cash?
I'm not,
I mean, if we know what we're spending the money on, obviously we ought to be able to.
it's all up in capital improvement. Which is then on the CIP page.
Oh, it's the 8 million, and then this projected one is capital improvements is 4.4 million, right? Yeah.
We don't need to do it in real time here now. I just want to make sure that there's data where I can, if you either tell me what the net cash flow is or show me how I can break that.
So what you're asking, you want to see net cash flow broken out between restricted and unrestricted?
Correct.
Is that possible? Without you spending 3 hours with a slide rule?
Well,
Yeah.
He's already got all the numbers. I don't,
Well, I'm looking at him to ask him that.
yeah, I guess I'm.
Well, net cash flow is it's not a restricted versus unrestricted.
Right.
Unless I did a separate column that said beginning restricted cash, then the capital projects that came out of restricted cash but
I don't see the need for that
But it-
myself, but,
But
Yeah.
I do, so.
Yeah,
I'm
well-
asking for
well,
it.
that's what I'm saying, that I think in those kind of things, when it's going to create that kind of work and doing different charts and all that, I think that kind of information, you should come to the board and let's ask the board, if that's what they want to see.
Because if you look at the
Yeah.
ending cash, that breaks it all down. That shows you where your designations or restricted cash is.
Okay, yeah, under ending cash, right.
Yeah, that's the different buckets.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's, you know, whether or not we're able to pay salaries next year
But we can pay salaries.
is dependent upon the unrestricted cash flow, not the restricted cash flow.
Yeah, I think I know what you're asking, but I think that type of thing, if you're looking at the way that this stuff is presented financially, how it's presented, how it's presented to our auditors and everything that's presented, then I think that is a request that needs to go to the full board, that if we're asking Ty to do something that is outside the norm, just so you can understand it, then that needs to go to board. I can't make that decision, I won't.
My feeling is all the board needs to understand what the unrestricted,
Exactly. If you can explain that to them and get them to agree to it, then, and Ty can work up a method of doing it. You know, that's what I can say. So I have no problem when, you know, when we start discussing these things, that subject be brought up and let the board make the decision. Because I don't think we need it. I mean, I see what we're seeing here, and I understand it, and it gives me a good picture where the district is going and how money is being spent and where things going. I understand it. And I think that if we're looking at something else for presentation purposes, then that's going to cost time and effort that we don't have a lot of. Then I don't want to do unless the board agrees. So I have no problem if it's something you want to put on the board packet to discuss with the board. I think that's where we need to go with it. I really do. Because I don't want to make the decision.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay, I hear you.
yeah.
Am I correct that the only balance, the only ending cash reserve at the end of the year, because bond funds are zero, we've spent all of those, the only restricted of funds are the 464,317.
Yes, yes,
So these are restricted, everything else is unrestricted.
correct.
Okay, if I have to, I can probably calculate the other.
Back into it, yeah.
And I'll get back to you to tell you what I found or what I think I calculated.
Okay.
And you can tell me whether you agree with it.
The, under ending cash, the only reserve that is up to snuff where we want it to be, and it's required really, is the, let's see, is the emergency reserve, which is 6 months operate, is it 6 months?
Right,
Yeah.
6 months operating.
Right, okay. And all the other ones we've been tapping into, and those are ones we hope to start putting money back in eventually.
Right.
Let's see, the other question I had there, well, and that's all our reserves. They're all sitting there looking at me right there. And the only other one that we have ones that we have limits on through that, the board resolution, I think we did, I'm sure we did a resolution on, is we have a high limit for capital replacement. I think we did one for future sources of supply. I think we did
So
I know you sent it to me already. I probably have it in here.
future sources of supply does not have a limit.
Yeah,
We just put 10,000 in, and then if we have any positive.
right. Okay. I'm just saying that I remember you sent it out, where do we have established amounts for reserves?
Right.
I remember seeing that. I probably have it here and I just can't find it.
I think the only ones established was we have the capital reserve, the computer reserve, and the vehicle reserve.
That's the ones,
Have
yeah,
caps, yeah.
yeah. And reserve, emergency stands as is because of the requirements. Right.
My point is, all cash is not the same. It's only the unrestricted cash we can spend if we get into an emergency. And that's why it's important.
Right, which are those reserves, yeah. Okay. What's the next?
Oh, okay.
Oh, you ready?
The next would be the CIP.
Are we done with 25, 26?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go 2 pages.
And then you got the CIP,
page.
which is the,
Now, and I would like to ask on the restricted, there are two areas, 464, 317, and bond project funds, and those are the only two restricted, is that
That's correct.
correct? And we're gonna come out with a 1.51 debt coverage ratio at the end of the year, I think.
This year,
For
extra
current
one
year,
point
this year, yeah.
Okay, well, that's better than what I thought we were going to do based upon the pro forma. But I can't remember exactly either, so maybe I shouldn't say.
I can't remember 3 months ago. Yeah, because the minimum goes one point
Because
two.
it was going down.
Yes.
Yeah, the
and
pro
that was when
forma,
We boosted our rates way up.
the pro forma in the rate analysis, rate study, yeah, was below the minimum.
Right.
But that was, we've had increased usage this year. And
Okay. All right. CIP, ready to go through the
CIP,
CIP,
So-
capital improvement
so-
projects?
yeah, I'll preface this by typically when you bond for projects,
Right.
for big projects, one-time projects, where we find ourselves now is that we just do not have any capital for what we need to do.
Okay.
So with that being said, and the bonding procedures allow us to do this. It's not set for specific projects. It's anything that can be capitalized, project-wise. So when we were going through what we needed to do for this year for capital, it came down to we had to spend bond proceeds on projects other than Springer.
Right.
What you'll see highlighted in green is what I have identified as coming from bond funds.
And the bond money that we had left was
Roughly 3 million something.
the
Yeah.
borrowed money plus the state.
No, so the state one's done. It's just,
Spent all of that.
yeah,
Okay,
we spent that first because that was more restricted than the bond funds.
okay. So it's the,
2024
2020.
CO, revenue funds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So if I total up all this green column, that's roughly 3 million plus.
Roughly, yeah.
Okay.
It's
But we
still
plan
in,
on spending all of that
yeah.
Yeah, looks like we are.
based upon the prior sheet.
Yep.
Seems reasonable.
I mean, the biggest one, of course, we've got to do the Brady repair.
Yeah.
That doesn't cover all of it. That covers a portion, that 1.15 million. Covers the northern portion. But then we have other things like we need a filtrate tank for the arsenic plant. We need some roofs, need some
Yeah.
repair.
But we're short then.
A storage building for all the pipe we bought,
Yeah.
so the sun doesn't rot it. I told them just put
So-
it in the ground and they said no.
So the total for expected capital work in 2026 is 4.4 million, of which we have 3 point,
I'd say 3.5 right now identified for the
right, so we're
bond.
roughly a million short for
Yeah.
capital work that we'd like to do in 2026.
Right, we,
Okay.
based on the cash flow, we're not covering all of our depreciation. We have about 1.1 million of rate revenue to work with.
Right. Okay.
Depreciation doesn't affect our cash.
No, but that just,
No,
Typically,
I
yeah.
understand. I just want to make sure that we don't.
It's a
throw
tax
apples
thing.
and oranges.
yeah.
That's
and
how I
it's
look at
not
it.
cash, but I use it as, okay, I take that depreciation number. I take out our debt service principal because that's not an
Right.
expense either.
Right.
Liability reduction. And then I take out if there's a negative balance, a negative
Yeah.
net, I take that out and I go, okay, what's left? That's what we can spend on capital.
Okay.
Okay, can we go through here and identify what is going to be spent with the restricted funds or is it the total
Now,
that we have at the bottom and we know that we have?
so what I did for you is I highlighted the bond ones in green.
The restricted funds are in the green boxes.
Right.
Okay, well, and actually, I'm not sure I care, I mean, I know that we've only got, well, as Ron was pointing out.
Yeah.
We've only got 3.9 million.
Yeah, so,
So if the bottom line is
Here's 4.4.
4.4, that means that if we stay on budget, that is spending,
Mhm.
then there's minimum of 500,000 I mean, I can subtract the one.
Yeah.
I can do that one subtraction and, okay, now,
I say do it.
but now let's go back to what the budget, want to make sure that the budget's still. Nope. The budget, 25-26 budget says we're spending 4.436. Is that what this sheet here says?
Yep, exactly.
Exactly?
Yeah, 4 point,
Okay,
yeah.
so all we do is subtract from the total. I don't think we need,
The
for
restricted.
my purposes, I don't need to
Yeah.
say, well, I appreciate you breaking it out, but, you know, as long as I know how much money we have to spend on capital and the rest of it has to be, unrestricted, that's roughly 500,000. I could do that.
What's this PTD column? Refresh me on that one. Term, okay, so project fee, that's what you spent to date. Okay, gotcha. It's already money that's been spent.
Sorry.
And the
project
other
date.
question I have is for Renee. I know you're deeply involved in this and you're looking at the projects we're doing and not doing and Jason as well.
Jason more than me. It's a lot of that stuff is his guys, so.
Yeah, it's his guys doing it. Are we okay with, I mean, in the real world, you know, you'd say, my wish list as an engineer and operations, I want this, and this. And I know you've had to cut back. I don't see, the only thing I don't see on here is, and I really want to understand this, the Springer line is needing to be replaced because it needs an increase in size, not because it's coming apart or anything like that.
Not being replaced.
Yeah, it's being.
I'm
adding
sorry,
another
it's
line.
been, you're running another line,
Yes.
Right.
Parallel, yes.
a parallel line.
It has fallen secondary to Brady.
Right, okay, exactly. And I guess what I'm asking, are you okay with what you see here? If we can actually pull off everything for 2026?
Yes, I mean, of course, we want everything done now. This is.
Yeah, I know.
How operators are, but at the same time, we understand there's limited money and there's limited time as well.
Yeah.
We're only gonna be able to get so much done in the time that we have next year.
Right.
And Brady and the consolidation, so we have plenty of work to do.
And with this construction crew, there might be some of this stuff we're doing, but you just can't predict how much. You'll
We'll be doing all of it.
be doing all this?
Yeah.
Okay,
On the 25-26 budget, there are no loan or grant proceeds.
that's right.
And there, it was similar to what we were discussing back on that other sheet. So again, I'm trying to wrap my mind around
There's some big projects.
because we know we are going to be spending money on some other capital projects.
So what I'll say is we have 3 weeks before the budget hearing. I will work with Renee and I'll get those numbers and I'll put them in the capital side as
Okay.
well as the revenue side.
Great.
And we'll,
Yeah, I mean,
we'll tie that up.
Well, and it seems to me that when we will be using less in-house labor for what we were doing when we have, when we assign personnel to doing some of the consolidation, because at least one and probably two of the consolidations will require some in-house labor. Am I
Yep.
correct there?
Correct.
Um,
Two of them.
I want to say kudos to
well,
the,
you
yeah,
understand what I'm talking about, so I don't, again, because
yeah.
my questions aren't coming clear to me either.
Well, I just want to say that based on our construction crew, I think we're going to see a considerable amount of savings in contracting everything out. And that's why maybe we will, we're going to be in better shape in terms of that, because if that crew can handle it and they're able to work their way through, depending on how much they get done and how quickly they can move along, as opposed to bringing a contractor in to do it. What, Jason, you're talking 50% more minimum of bringing a contractor versus doing it in-house? I'm guessing.
I mean, I just got some preliminary numbers and it looks like currently, that's including the inspector that we contracted out. We're looking at about $100,000 and we're almost done with phase one of Rademacher
Yeah,
and we budgeted 260.
yeah.
So
Wow. Because we're using our own, that's
estimated.
huge. That's
Yeah.
just a
Well,
huge
there's a
amount.
lot of things included in that budget,
Right.
including some of the engineering work and things like that, so.
I'm just saying that having that construction branch or department, it will pay for itself. There's no doubt about it. No
You
doubt.
know, what I'm hoping
Yeah,
is that it will not just pay for itself, but it will break free money that
Yeah.
we can use for capital expense that we would have
Yeah.
otherwise had to use for in-house labor.
and I don't want to get in farther down the line here because those numbers are pretty high and Ty says it exactly.
It's hoping,
Yeah.
well, just breaking even is
Yeah,
not a plus. What I want to do is save us our unrestricted funding to do what we want with, including some additional capital improvement beyond what we've already got budgeted.
is this list, CIP list, Renee, is this everything that you, as much as you can predict right now for the coming years that needs to be done?
Yeah, we've all sat
You
down
you
and.
sat
talked
down and
about
went,
it.
good, okay.
And you'll see it's a little light on the out years. That's just because we haven't identified.
So if I can write you a check for 40 million, I'm sorry, $37 million, you could do all this.
I will run to the bank right now.
I know. So, well, it's a good guideline. It needs to be used. And I agree with Ty that as we get, as soon as we get approved and moving on to this next fiscal year, we need to start eyeing up these things. And I don't know, George, you had a great idea that maybe there's a way we can look at something can be fitted into a budget for us at the state level. I don't know whether Shannon Grove or somebody can help us. Maybe we have to come up with how we would present that and how we can do it, especially for to me, I firmly believe that a lot of failures that we're having is because of the earthquake that are manifesting now.
So-
People can argue no, but I've seen it, you've seen it. There's
So we've got some money in there to try to
to find out.
work with someone to.
Yeah, to find out, yeah, and I know you intend to, yeah,
We've got KP,
yeah,
Brenda's about this, going after state funding may not be her specialty, but I'm sure her firm has people that do.
yeah, that may find it, exactly. I mean, ideally, you get something put into the budget that's directly for us. That's the easiest way to do it,
Exactly.
yeah. Okay,
Anything that we have listed for capital improvements that Chuck Krieger might have an issue with in terms of priority? Have you run this by him, I guess is the question?
no,
We haven't. This is staff's list.
We are talking with Chuck separately about the things that, the various projects that we would want him to work on. He's got a list that he sent to Ty.
Yeah, some of those items are in here. Some we have pushed off, so they won't be happening right away. But
Yeah.
Oh, well,
So we-
I
we-
wasn't necessarily talking
we-
about stuff that we wanted him to do, but we didn't have money for, just in terms of capital improvements in general. I mean, if you go back and you look at our general plan, he's got his definite opinion of what the priorities are and what they should be.
I think this falls in line with what we already had as a priority list. Brady has taken precedent, and so that's paramount. Springer's number 2, and then we'll plan from there.
Okay, so you don't think he's gonna have a problem with
Not one bit.
anything we're doing?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay,
I
that's why we have a consultant.
I do have a question about Brady, though. Do you anticipate, based on what you know?
Yeah, well, I've got to go home and get my microscope,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
I can't read.
But the Brady repairs, I mean, that's Brady repairs
Yes.
and 1.5 million. But if in turn you need to do the whole 4 miles, what is it?
It's
5?
3.25.
3.25 miles of that particular pipe, that isn't into 1.5,
It
1.1
can't be,
million.
no.
Yeah, that's going to be somewhere almost on the, like the Northwest pipeline to 3.
No, I don't think it'll be that. It'll be closer to the 2.5 million.
Okay.
Because
And I just didn't see that. I'm looking under water distribution, page 1 of 2 of the CIP, well, for the Brady repair of 1.15 million. And I don't see anything farther down in other years yet.
it'll be there.
It'll be there. Yeah, it's gonna,
We were mostly focusing on this year.
right, I mean, we're focusing on this year and because I know we will go over this during the workshop or whenever, when we do it. And so the question I have, you have a special meeting scheduled to talk about budget. What are we going to do at that meeting?
Yeah, so,
That's the
Um,
28th, I think, right? Yeah.
yeah, I felt like, it would be worthwhile to have a special board meeting and go over the budget with everybody, sort of the slides that we have done and sort of talk about the various, the new construction crew, what do we expect them to be spending? What is engineering spending? I mean, I thought that meeting would be is where we would go over all these details that we just went over in this meeting, and we would do it with all the board directors. So we may not need to have a need for that meeting. I just felt like it would be important for all board members to.
The more questions that could be asked at that meeting, which specifically is for this. So when it comes to this is for time for approval, which would be next month, right? Then the board hopefully would have their questions answered or any modifications needed to be done would be done. I think that, yeah, we talked about some things here that maybe you want to cover then, but that was inevitable.
Yeah, so if you guys recommend that you think we don't need to have a follow-on full board meeting with all the members to go over this, that's fine. We can cancel that. Or you can say, no, let's go over this one more time so all board members are aware. It's up to you.
I just think by getting it in front of the board members, especially, first of all, the budget's a big thing. Right? The budget, this is a big issue to deal with. And to sit here and say, we're going to send 3 other board members are going to see it at a board meeting for approval, and you and I have dove into it, I think it's only right that they have the opportunity to ask those questions as well. I think you ought to continue with the meeting and however your presentation is, what you're going to do. And I'm hoping to come away with the board understanding that what we're doing and agreeing with it, or like Stan says, are there some modifications we want to make? Yeah,
And that's another chance where, a Chuck Krieger could be invited to that board meeting to call in and look at what we're
Yeah.
doing. It would give our consultants
Oh,
a
yeah.
chance
That
to
would be good, yeah.
yeah.
look
I
at
don't-
what we're doing.
And I'm not suggesting he's going to have an issue with anything. I just want to make sure that we feel confident that he's on board. I got the impression that he really wanted to do that one effort that, well, frankly, we don't have money for. And I'm still concerned that we haven't included all the, no matter how many times you ask the lawyers, well, what do you need? Oh, well, sure, but we didn't include this, and the
Yeah.
more I see the wasteful.
But you tell them
what's
is
going
whatever
on
you
in
tell me is
Cornell.
your estimate, that
And-
once you hit
So,
that,
Stan,
everything's free.
So Stan, if you can get lawyers to work by the job instead of by the hour, those
Oh.
court cases will go
Oh,
way
yeah.
faster.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It would be possible to get these printouts on something that's a little bit more readable? Like on 8.5 by 13 or some paper that,
Does our
For you,
printer
Stan,
out
I
there
will.
print
I'm
on larger
serious, I
stuff?
can't read this.
No,
You're talking
I
about the
get it.
CIP, yeah,
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 for you, Stan, I will.
yeah.
Yes, Stan, the answer is yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes. And I do agree with the
We'll get it
meeting.
on legal.
And,
Now,
yeah.
this is, no, I actually do have
okay.
So
three
you raise another.
fires that I'll.
You raise another good point, and I wanted to discuss, I'll just discuss with you guys first. So my first thought was, we have 2 board workshops a year. I would like the board at some point to consider, should one of those, should we reschedule those, the timing, and maybe have one of our our normal half-day board workshops scheduled in, what would be the right month? April, May, so it actually falls before the budget, so we all get a chance to sit down and do this budget drill every year as part of our normal routine of board workshops, which means instead of doing it in January and July.
I agree with you. I think it's time to redefine the board workshops. I think at the coming workshop, which is typically just June or July, that what you do as a staff is you present what you think the workshop should look at. And then let the board say if they want anything added. Because to be honest with you, I don't want to get into that now, but part of that workshop, I'm saying, well, no, that's between George and the staff. And your people, you're telling us, here's my goals and what's going on and stuff like that. And to me, the most important thing personally, I see 2 things. One is what's happening with capital projects and projection for capital projects and the condition of the system. And the other one is the budget. And so I don't disagree with you. I think that you guys ought to sit down and plan for the next budget workshop, that you say, part of what we're going to do here for the first half hour, whatever you think it may be, is discuss with the board what should be the most important things to cover in a budget workshop. Some of that stuff we're covering, I know it's interesting, and how many events did we go to, and how much public relations did we do, and things like that. It's important to. But do we have to take the time for that? Maybe it's something you want to give us that we can read. That's for our here. By the way, take this read on your own leisure. And if you have questions, call us. But these single most important things, I think, is what you guys should pick out for the workshop. Don't you agree, Stan? I like the idea of having the one that concerns the budget right before we approve the budget. Yeah.
I have no problem
Yeah.
with adding a special.
Yeah, for this one, yeah.
For this type thing.
I think George is
And-
advocating that
and-
maybe
and I
we work
think
it into it.
George, good idea, because we normally, the finance committee sees it, 2 months before,
Yeah.
but
And then the board
the
just
rest
sees
of
it.
people until that night,
Yeah.
they are blind, and this is a much better way. I would have rather, and I sent Lauren back a note saying, could we push this back a little bit in case there are comments that Ty has to do something between the 28th or
And
that
the next meeting, yeah.
And I think we're gonna have to do our best this year, but I think what we're trying to say is, as we move forward in time and into the future, we want to be able to do that far enough in advance, and we just plan that into our schedule so that we do have time to,
Yeah.
first bring it to the finance committee, then have a follow-on, our regular board workshop, and this will be a part of it. Then the budget gets done, and then Ty has
Good
time to
idea.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I do disagree with one of the things you said, is
Yeah.
that I certainly agree that the budget, the workshop, the discussion of capital improvements
Right.
is very important.
right.
When you say the budget, what my concern is the unrestricted budget. I don't want to get into a situation where we have to lay off 30% of our crew.
Oh, yeah.
Again,
And
So
yeah.
you can't just look at the budget. You got to look at,
Well, when I say budget, I mean,
you got to
Everything, yeah.
understand what's happening to the unrestricted budget, because frankly, that's the one that's going to kill us
Yeah.
if we have a problem.
We
If we over-
understand your concerns,
If we
Stan, and I think
overspend on
we're,
Capital, with cash capital or the unrestricted capital, we could get into the same problem we had before, so.
Yeah.
Rather than the
Yeah.
budget.
well, yeah.
And they're both
What-
budgets are,
Yeah, when I say budget, it covers everything,
Well, I didn't
Yeah.
get that impression when we were talking
Right.
earlier.
Yeah,
So I
so-
wanted to reemphasize that. But I'm good to go, and
Yeah, I think
we're
good to go.
We're actually not in bad time at all. Sorry what we went over.
Well, I don't know, hour and a half?
Hour and a
Ty
half.
talked the whole time. Renee was good. She
This
said,
is important stuff.
Yeah, well, it is. And that's why I think the special board meeting's gonna be good. I really do.
Yeah.
Okay.
And-
Well, you need to get back on schedule, Ron.
Yeah, I know.
I tried to drag this out for Jason's birthday.
Is today Jason's birthday?
It is.
What are you, 47, 48? Oh, my
Whose
God.
birthday is it?
You're almost as old as I am. It's
Jason.
Jason's.
Jason, happy birthday.
Hey, but before we get into sing, we are gonna sing. But before we get into singing,
Ties is tomorrow.
okay, before we get into
I bet-
singing happy birthday, is there anything else that we're gonna talk about here? Are we done? Can I close the meeting?
Close the meeting.
Close the meeting at 4:30. All right, officially. Now we can make fun of him. Ty, how old are you?